Hi everyone, I'm Don with Not Great Entertainment, and welcome to the Wanderer's Hideaway Tavern. So it started about a year ago now. I was talking to John. I think we were playing a game of League of Legends or something online, and mentioned that my roommate wanted to get an in-house game together, and we needed some extra people to play. And I knew that John and Kelsey had been playing with a group of friends of their own, but it was really hard to schedule for them because it was such a large group of people. So they'd really only done like one or two sessions, and they agreed to join us, and that's how it started.
I had a small group where I played with a couple friends of mine, but it was a really inconsistent thing. It was just too difficult to schedule like 7 or 8 people, so I only played 2 or 3 times. And then Don told me that a roommate of his was interested in beginning an in-house game, so that was essentially his very soft, easy pitch to us was, hey, I heard you were just talking about playing Dungeons & Dragons. Somebody I know is talking about playing Dungeons & Dragons. And we essentially went from there.
And after talking to our roommate about playing, I decided to ask my Twitch stream, would you guys be interested in watching us play on stream? And their immediate reaction was absolutely. They were really, really interested in it. And at the time, I kind of had an idea in mind of how I wanted to get everything together. I had some microphones and I just needed to get some cables to run the stuff back into my office where all the equipment was. So I set a budget of, I think, $150 or something to pay for some of the initial startup cost. Clearly, we've blown past that at this point, and very quickly, too. I realized that the microphones I wanted to use weren't really conducive to playing. They would have gotten in the way, so we decided to go with XLR headsets that kind of allow us to move around and not be impacted by them when we're trying to role play, which I think is really important. And then I used those longer cables to get the equipment back to my office. I got a bunch of long USB cables, a couple of webcams, set up some IKEA tables, and we were off on our D&D adventure.
We played a decent number of sessions, but again, for that session scheduling for all of us, just because there were, again, so many of us, became essentially impossible with a lot of adult work schedules in the mornings and afternoon conflicts. So sadly, that campaign also came to a conclusion, and then I offered to be our next DM. Don and Kelsey and I did not want to give up on playing Dungeons & Dragons. We had enjoyed it so much in our very limited opportunity, but we knew we needed more people.
I reached out to a couple of my friends, and John reached out to a couple of his friends, and we were able to gather another 2 people to join myself and John in another campaign. We sat down with them and did like a session 0 to kind of go over what to expect and how we wanted to play. And then John kind of locked himself away for 2 weeks and built his world in an incredibly quick time. You'd never know it, that it was that fast. And then 2 weeks later, we started playing. We started our second session, and we realized very rapidly that we wanted D&D to be even more of a major part in our lives. We wanted to kind of up the game just after a couple of episodes, somehow making it more immersive for ourselves and for the people watching.
We talked about ways of getting more elaborate, and then it became, what if we played in a more interesting environment? And that was where our first conversations about improved immersion became our kind of constant after-session conversation. We would go out and get food and sit and talk about things that we all imagined in our head about these grand scale plans, and we went from like simple curtain ideas behind a couple of the players who didn't have a natural wall behind them to ways of hiding various elements of the modern room that we existed in behind us. because we never felt like costumes really were just the answer. We still knew we were being pulled into a different world, and we wanted a full stage setting. So we went from curtains to a tavern. We didn't know we were going to do it here, at least in the first part. Don wasn't sure whether or not we could maybe refinish his garage or put some kind of like barn-like structure in his backyard as a location for our secret Dungeons and Dragons sessions.
So then we talked through possible construction ideas, and I talked to my father-in-law about ways that, he could maybe help us out. He was a contractor for a lot of years, and he agreed to help us out over the Christmas holiday in a 2-week span to kind of build this area up. And he had time off, had like a holiday vacation, and he was nice enough to allow us to steal his time away and help us do this. And he was really crucial in kind of the design of some of the things you see here, like these beams. Our original plan was to use some type of a foam that we were going to score and paint, and because we weren't sure with it being a basement with moisture, should we put wood on the walls? Is it too heavy? The painting on the walls was done by painting a base coat of a orangey yellow, like a sun color, which originally I did not think was going to look appropriate. It looked too yellow to me, but my girlfriend told me to trust her. She's an artist. She knows. And she was correct. Once we added the other colors in, which we did that by taking a couple of different sponge textures. We got like an actual sea sponge from a paint store and some generic sponges from a grocery store. And we got some browns, some blacks, some oranges, and sponged them on to give that plaster look without having to physically texture the wall. We've managed to keep it where it looks exactly like a plaster texture. And the bar is completely hand-built. My father-in-law and I built it with plywood, some 2x4s, some pressure-treated wood, and then we covered it with 2 different types of flooring and some actual pieces of wood. It's a real, it's a working bar. You could serve drinks from it.
So we bought a lot of things off Amazon and Home Depot and Hobby Lobby and other like craft stores in our area. We built some things. We decorated as best as we could.
So shiny!
And then when we were at that point and we looked around us, we realized that this now is awesome looking, but feels really vacant and empty. And we finished the shelves, I think, a day or so later. And as we looked around, we felt like everything looked awesome, but it was sparse. Like, it was weird. We went through these evolutionary phases of looking at it, going, oh my God, we love it. And then coming up with another idea where, in terms of decorative stuff around us, we knew potion bottles and we knew the vials of dust. And then we got a boat. And then we got vials to put herbs and ferns and other various pieces in. And then we got a big bar keg-like thing to put up for a bar barrel to be able to have decoration for that. We made a tavern sign. We bought lanterns. Every step of the way just felt, every time we walked back into the room after having added something new to it, it felt like a completely different play space.
And everything in here is battery operated to the best of our ability outside of the ceiling lights, because the space was already finished, so we couldn't really run power anywhere. So we made do with what we could find. A lot of the stuff came from Amazon. This is a battery-powered lantern that we found that looks like a metal texture because of the way it's painted. But it's plastic. It's got an LED strip in it. It's battery-operated. It's very light. But when you put it back against the wall, it's very realistic looking, and it keeps that immersiveness going. It keeps that tavern alive.
It took D&D from being something that we had as a passion for playing together and creating cool and interesting stories into this complete environmental effect. And all of us feel completely different every time we open that sliding door.
This tavern has become something that I'm very proud of, and I'm never afraid to share any aspect of this with anyone, to kind of give them a peek behind the curtain into what I do in my spare time and what we as a group do and are lucky enough to share our tales of adventure 3 times a week. The Wanderer's Hideaway Tavern is my home away from home. It is somewhere that I go every weekend and every week to spin tales of adventure with my friends and entertain as many people as I can along the way.